So, good morning, everybody out there. So, any revelations overnight about better understanding of Seichel Alaki, Seichel Anushi, Seichel Ativi?
No.
No. Does the word Seichel ring a bell? Seichel is okay. Yeah, okay. Is there any understanding, or it was totally over your head? I guess I got the answer.
Can I try to give an example from parenting?
In what?
Can I try to give an example of the three from the world of parenting?
In the world of parenting?
Would it be helpful or not helpful?
I got to think of an example in the first place. If I could think of something in the world of parenting.
I would want to share something to see if it's accurate.
Okay.
Would you rather not?
I don't know why your voice is not sharp and clear. Now we don't hear it. Yeah?
I was thinking Seichel Tivi would be when, can you hear?
Yeah.
The parent has an interaction with the child and just reacts, doesn't think about it, and either just tries to avoid it and, let's say, runs to the kitchen and just forget about it and indulge the animal to get away from the issue. Seichel Enoshi would be maybe a reaction, negative reaction right away, but it's at least trying to speak, but instead, let's say, yelling. And then Seichel Eloki would be stopping, saying to Hashem, what does the child need now? What is the right thing to say to this child? And trying to tap into the Nefesh Elokis, what's the proper way?
Okay, that could be. I'll repeat what Bluma said. What she's saying is an example that from the perspective of parenting, if a child is acting in an inappropriate way, Seichel Ativi will be responding, even though it's Seichel, but they're responding more emotionally, either screaming at the child or avoiding the situation. And basically, it'll be more emotion than intellect. It'll be based on intellect. They'll be able to explain why they're doing what they're doing, and they think this is the best way, but it's very likely that they're really reacting emotionally and just justifying it with Seichel. Seichel Anushi would be, I guess, psychology, all sorts of psychological ways of approaching it, which is pure Seichel. It's not emotional. It's already approaching it from more of a philosophical perspective. Seichel Elokei would be when you recognize that the worst case scenario, this child has a Nefesh Elokis, and his Nefesh Elokis is pure, and it's godly, and it wants to do everything that's right. And all I need to do is find the trigger to reveal the Nefesh Elokis, and everything will fall into place. That's the way Seichel Elokei looks at it. I think it's a pretty fair example, one example of the three things. I just want to bring out that Seichel Anushi, which means the human way of thinking, doesn't mean that Hashem is out of the picture. This could even be with Hashem in the picture. Hashem is the creator of the world. Hashem is the one who is in charge of the world. But seichel enushi, human logic, will understand this and perceive this in a much more limited way. So, for example, let me give an example. You talk about Hashgacha Pratis. Seichel enushi will recognize that Hashem is in charge. If God forbid there's a war, Hashem is in charge. If there's an earthquake, Hashem is in charge. If there's a crash in the market, Hashem is in charge. But the little things that happen on a daily basis, I drop my coffee and it spills all over. Hashem is in charge of a coffee falling down on the floor or on my clothes and messing everything up. Hashem has more important things to do than that. He doesn't look into these little details. A leaf falls off a tree. Hashem is thinking how many times the leaf should do somersaults until it hits the ground and where exactly it should fall, in this spot or that spot. Seichel Nushit probably could not comprehend such a thing and cannot accept such a thing. It just doesn't make any sense. And the best proof is that even when people learn about it in Chassidus, they have a hard time accepting it because it doesn't make any sense. Say that Hashem is involved, look out the window. Today's going to be a very strong wind. You probably heard about it. If you don't hold on, you'll be in the dorm in no time. So imagine you walk outside, there's a strong wind blowing, and you're watching hundreds of thousands of leaves on the trees or branches going back and forth. You're going to tell me that Hashem is in charge and thinking about every single branch, how many times it should shake back and forth? And by the way, this is happening all over the globe. All over the globe, in the whole world, in every country in the world, even in places where people don't live, and Hashem is watching every little thing. Seichel and Nushi can't comprehend that. So even if you believe in Hashem and you believe in Hashem's control, it's still in a limited way. And the reason is because you're approaching it from outside in. In other words, we have a premise. There's a world, there's science, there's rules, there's laws, there's things that make sense and things that don't make sense. And from that perspective, I'm grasping Hashem. So I will grasp Hashem in my limited way, somehow limited by my understanding. Seichel Eloki is from inside out, which means it's in a sense Hashem's perspective, the way he sees the world. And Hashem created the whole universe. He created all the laws of nature. He created all the laws of logic. And therefore, it doesn't make sense to say, when you talk about Hashem, that it's not logical that he can do this or that. He created logic. The reason why something makes sense or doesn't make sense, because Hashem created that way. But logic or intellect won't accept that I'm a creation of Hashem. Logic and intellect will say, this is it. This is the essence of everything. The acceptance that there's something higher than logic, not higher, infinitely higher than logic. I think I mentioned this once before, but let me show it to you visually. And it just makes it a little bit more sharper picture. It says in Chassidus that the highest world we know is Atzilus, right? Okay. In Atzilus, the highest sphere is Chachma. Then there is 9 others. Then there's the world of Bria. The highest thing in Bria is Chachma. Then there's 9 others. Then there's the world of Yitzira. The highest thing in Yitzira is Chachma. And then there are 9 others. The highest thing in Asiya is Chachma. And then there are 9 others. So at the bottom of this line in the world of Asiya are things that are physical. And in the physical, there's human, animals, plant, and what's the lowest level? The inanimate, a rock. A rock. R-O-C-K. How many levels is this far from this? Let's say 4 worlds. But in each world there's 10 spheres, 4 times 10. So it's 40 levels. So Chassidus explained, no, that's not 40 levels. It's millions and billions and gazillion levels, because each one of these has hundreds and thousands of details in it. So you're talking about infinite levels from here till here. It's beyond comprehension. The distance from here to here, because the distance from here to here is already beyond comprehension. From here to here, from here to here, this is the lowest, this is the most physical. So it says in Chassidus that the distance from here to here, one jump from here to here, is infinitely greater than from here to here, to the point that from here, that this rock, which has absolutely no life to it, no consciousness, nothing, and Chochmah Vatzilus compared to this are both equal. How can that be? The answer, because this is finite and this is finite. And no matter how much finite is and how high it is, everything that's finite has some value in the place of a bigger finite. Like if you have the example given, if you have the Atlantic Ocean, it's impossible to imagine how big the Atlantic Ocean is. But imagine you have the Atlantic Ocean together with the Pacific Ocean and all the oceans of the world. Does a drop of water have any significance legabe the Atlantic Ocean? Could you say that it's zero? You can't say it's zero. You know why? Because all these oceans are made up of drops of water. If one drop of water would be nothing, there couldn't have been an Atlantic Ocean. If one penny has no value, there cannot be $1. And if one penny has no value, there couldn't be $100 or $100,000 or $1 million or $1 billion. Because the definition of $1 billion is billions and billions and billions of pennies. So anything that is finite has some value in the presence of a higher finite. But this is infinite. And how far is finite from infinite? Infinite distance. So from here to here is further away than from here to here. And not only further away, it's so high that this and this are both equal. Compared to infinite, the Atlantic Ocean and one drop of water are the same. How far is Atlantic Ocean from infinite? Hello. How far is Atlantic Ocean from infinite?
Infinite.
What's the distance?
Infinite.
Of course you know. It's infinite. If something is infinite, then something like Atlantic Ocean, which is finite, has to be infinite distance from Atlantic Ocean. How far is one drop of water from infinite? Infinite. So a drop of water, Atlantic Ocean, are equal distance from infinity. That's what they taught me in the second grade. Isn't it? Not really. So what I'm saying is that Seichel Anushi is all about here, logic, intellect, higher intellect, and deeper intellect, and infinite intellect, but intellect. So there's always a common denominator between this and everything in our world. There's a connection here. And when we look at Hashem, we look at it through these glasses, through the rules and through the guidelines and through the principles of logic in one way or another. And that's how we grasp Hashem. That's where we understand Hashem. Seichel Eliki, serious business. Seichel Eliki is beyond logic. It's infinite. It's a different world, a different realm. To the extent that it says that Chochmah Ma'ayin Timtza. To much say that Chochmah is Yesh Me'ayin from here. It's like a new creation. And therefore, this is something which is only understood in Seichel Eliki. So, for example, this week is one of the examples that we have. We learn about the Beis Hamikdash. We learn about the Aron. So everyone knows that in the Beis Hamikdash and the Kodesh HaKodashim there was a miracle. What was the miracle? Makom ha'aron eina min hamidah. What? It didn't occupy space. Thank you. It didn't occupy space, which means, on one hand, it had a measurement. According to halacha, you were supposed to measure the room. It must be 20 amos. And the aron must be a certain amount of measurements. And you measure it, and yet it occupies no space. Which means, again, to make it visual, here's the room where the aron was. This room was 20 amos. I think that's the measurement. 20 amos. The aron is here in the middle. When you took a ruler, nothing happened. You took a ruler, you measured from here to here, it was 10. From here to here, 10. How can it be? This occupies space. And when you look, you don't see anything out of the ordinary. So this is considered in the language of those that bring this point out, the Ramban and others, called Nimna Hanim Noise. It's like the impossible, things that are absolutely inconceivable. And there's a big question amongst philosophers. The question is, could Hashem make an elephant go through the hole of a needlehead?
Yeah.
Hashem can make an elephant go through the tiny hole of a needlehead.
Hashem can do
He can do anything, but I'll tell you how he can do it. He can do it two ways. Everyone agrees to this. One way is that the elephant becomes as thin as a thread, goes through the needlehead, comes out alive on the other end, and that's a miracle. The other possibility is that Hashem takes the needlehead, stretches it to the size of an elephant. The elephant goes through, and the needle didn't break. I'm asking a different question. Everyone agrees to what I just said. The third scenario is, could Hashem have an elephant that doesn't become smaller, a needle hole that doesn't become bigger, and the elephant should go through?
Yeah.
How?
It's just the same way he made it impossible for the elephant to go through the needlehead through nature. So too, he can make it like.
Okay, so I want to say that there are opinions. I'm talking about even Torah scholars, Torah philosophers, which believe in Hashem 1,000,000,000%, that say this is something which is inconceivable. It doesn't make any sense, because how could something big fit through something small? The reason why they say that is, again, because they're approaching it with a premise of the basic principles of logic. There's certain basic principles of logic which everyone agrees. Like this, something big can be contained in a small space. There's a basic, Rambam writes, there's a basic principle of logic. A son or a daughter can be older than their parents. That makes sense? In that vein, anything that's a product can be older than that which produced the product. And so on in math, in science, in medicine, all of this logic, the whole world of logic and intellect is based on certain, you can almost call them axioms of logic, certain basic principles of logic, and everything else is based on those basic principles. But the principles are like untouchable. You can't say that a son could be older than the father, and you can't have an elephant pass through this tiny hole. In Kabbalah and in Chassidus, it says, no, logic and all your questions, that was created by Hashem. So if it doesn't make sense to us, it means in the realm of logic, it makes no sense. But Hashem is in a place which is beyond logic. There are no rules, there are no laws. The basic principles of logic itself was created by Hashem. So therefore, when it comes to him, there are really no true questions. Did I lose you again?
No.
No, you follow me. This is one of the answers given in reference to Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu brought his son to the Akedah. And one of the reasons why this was a big test was not only because he loved his son so much. He was one and only son, born at the age of 100. He prayed so hard to have this son, and now he himself should be the one to take away his life. That's an amazing test. But it says there was even something greater in terms of his amunah. Hashem promised him that this son is going to be a father of a great nation. Yitzchak wasn't even married. He had no children. And Hashem is telling him to end his life. How is that promise going to be fulfilled? So all the Mefarshim, a lot of Mefarshim commentary on the Torah, ask the question of what was Avraham Avinu thinking? In his mind, how did he reconcile both things?
By the laws of the nature.
Right, but how did it make sense to him? Hashem said Yitzchak is going to be a father of a great nation. It has to be true. Hashem said take away his life. That also has to be true. How's that going to happen? Yeah. What was he thinking? We know the truth. At the end, it was only a test. But he didn't know it was a test. So what was he thinking? How would Hashem fulfill his promise? So different Mefarshim giving different answers. In the Zohar, there's a very interesting answer. He doesn't say what he was thinking. He just says these words. Avraham Avinu knew the world in a different way. So there was a chassid, his name is Rashbatz. He was a very big chassid, a famous chassid. He was one who taught Chassidus to the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe Rashab when they were young children. And he said, you know what the Zohar means? That Rabbi Avraham Avinu didn't have to have an answer in his head. He had no question in the first place. Why? What's the question? That logic doesn't see how both things can be true? Logic, it doesn't have to understand and can't understand because Hashem is infinite above logic. And therefore, it didn't bother him that logic didn't understand because logic is Hashem's creation. And Hashem created logic to operate and function in a limited way. So what's the question? That limited logic can't understand Hashem? It's not a question. I know it's all true. How it's true? Hashem will work it out. So what we're saying is that even the deepest logic, people who are the biggest philosophers, and I'm talking about people who believe in Hashem and believe in Torah and believe in mitzvahs and philosophizing, but they're still understanding Hashem from the perspective of the world and nature and logic and intellect, that's the way that's like sort of the beginning of everything. And from there we approach everything, from there we perceive everything. So they also perceive Hashem with the sort of the parameters of logic. Seichel Elokei is recognized as something totally beyond logic, and that's the ultimate emes. And that's a whole. Then you approach parenting differently. You approach your personal life differently. You approach your beliefs differently. Everything is suddenly changes in a totally different way. That's Seichel Elokei. And the truth is, if not for the fact that we have a nefesh elokis, this wouldn't register in our minds either. But the nefesh elokis is godly, so it can absorb and it could register in its brain Seichel Elokei, the way we understand Hashem in a totally different way. And when it comes to even something simple, keeping Shabbos, and it's very hard if you keep Shabbos, like not now, Baruch Hashem, but when Jews first came here from America, their Rebbe Hecht, who just passed away. I remember her father. When I saw her father, he was in his 90s, and he told us, he was talking to a group of people, and he said that he came to America when he was a young boy, 11, 12 years old. And he came to America as a frum Jew, but he came alone with his mother. I don't know if his father passed away, but he had to be the one to be the breadwinner. He got himself a job, came Shabbos, he didn't come into work. So when the boss asked him on Monday, the boss was Jewish, by the way, why didn't you come in Saturday? He said, I keep Shabbos. So if you can't come in on Shabbos, don't come in on Monday. Goodbye. That was the end of his job. So he took a job in another factory. And this time he didn't tell them because of Shabbos. He said he had a stomach ache. Okay. He works till the end of the week. Next Shabbos he doesn't come in. Where were you Shabbos? Had a headache. Okay. How many stomach aches and headaches can you have? At the end, he realized, oh, he's keeping Shabbos. If you can't come in on Shabbos, don't come in on Monday. Lost the second job, third job, fourth job. He couldn't keep a job. He said eventually he came up to, again, all the factories, he was going to all the Jews, unfortunately not religious Jews. And the Jews said to him, if you promise me to come in on Sunday and catch up on your work on the machines, I'll open the factory for you and let you keep Shabbos. He was very kind to him. He opened the factory. He said the boss would come into the factory, put his head down and go to sleep, and he would work on the machines to catch up with his work. But when he left the work on Friday, the other Jewish workers would make fun of him. And they would say, L'chadaydi, L'chadaydi, when are you going home, L'chadaydi? Because Friday, they all knew, they just say L'chadaydi. This was life in America. And that's why in America, when you want to say somebody's frum, you know what they usually say? Oh, he's Shomer Shabbos. What do you mean Shomer Shabbos? Frum is a lot of things, not just Shabbos. In those days, that was the sort of the main thing. If you kept Shabbos, you kept Yiddishkeit. If you dropped Shabbos, everything dropped. And in people's minds, it was not they wanted to be not frum. It's impossible to live in America if you keep Shabbos. You're not going to have a job. It's impossible. And when you approach it logically, you see that it's impossible. One after the other, they throw you out of your job. It's impossible. If you approach it with Seichel Eliki, then you realize nothing is impossible. Hashem created the world. He told me to keep Shabbos. He told me to support my family. So certainly he will come through. And therefore, these people stood strong. It was their Seichel Eliki that was shining. They stood strong and they overcame the test. And unfortunately, thousands of people who didn't want to violate Shabbos only did it because they felt it's impossible. They used to say in Yiddish, you probably heard, America is anders. We can't keep Yiddishkeit in America. That's it. We're in a different country. We have to just resign, give up. But Seichel Eliki looks at the world from Hashem's perspective. There's nothing in the world that could stop me from serving Hashem. Okay. We'll keep chewing this over till finally it'll register a little bit more. I don't know if things are more clear now than yesterday, but this should be a little bit more clear. Okay, so yesterday we spoke about Yashar Keil, that the word Yisrael is Yashar Keil, and Yashar means straight. What does straight have to do with the subject we're talking about? And it brings a pasuk. Hashem created us to be straight in the eyes of Hashem. So he says straight means that everything we do is aligned with Hashem's will and Hashem's purpose. It's like when we have a mission statement, you check whatever I'm doing, is this consistent with the mission statement or am I deviating to the side? So it's straight. And what causes a person to deviate, to go away from the straight path? That's a big shulchan when a person gets into many different things, plural. And he explained that that means when a person becomes fragmented and it becomes sort of scattered. I know I have to daven and learn, but I have other responsibilities. I have to support my family. I want to have a career. I want to be somebody in society. I want to do something in the government. I have plans. I have goals. I have wonderful things that I'm looking forward to get there. And I'm going in many different directions. And that's where we get lost. What does straight mean? Straight means that all the things you have, they still can all be straight. They'll all be aligned with Hashem's will. And therefore, you're not fragmented. Your life is not breaking up into different parts. It's all one thing. You have one goal, one direction, and taking care of your family and going to work and having a job or having a career or having a job in government or being somebody in the community. All these things are part of your purpose of serving Hashem. So that's what Shema is. Let's look at the words inside. Let's start with the top of the page again. We'll go back a little bit. With the third line from the top, page 136, V'hine. No, let's start all the way from the top line. Alakim also Sodom Yashar. That means Hanefesh Alakim is the godly soul, Be'etzem, in essence, is Yashar, is straight. As it says in another passage, Lasa says, Yashar, Be'eni Hashem Alakecha. Do what's right and what's straight. It doesn't say what's right, what's straight. He's explaining the term straight. Shuayesha, the Torah mitzvahs. It means the straightness of Torah mitzvahs. The simple meaning is that Torah mitzvahs is a straight path, not doing anything wrong in this direction or that direction. I'm following, it's like when you're traveling and you go straight, you're not getting lost. You're not getting off the road and getting lost somewhere. You're following the straight path. But here is explaining a little bit deeper. Hey, Hashem created us to go straight, but they are pursuing all different kinds of calculations, which means Hema is plural, Pirush. Heim, Nasa Shtayim. Once the Neshama comes down here, there's two things. There's the Nefesh Elokis, is in the Nefesh Bahamas. The Nefesh Elokis is not alone now. He has Nefesh Bahamas. And together, Bikshu Cheshbeinis Rabbim. They go ahead and they're pursuing all kinds of goals and making all kinds of calculations. Hainu Pizur HaNefesh. This is the soul, the person being scattered and fragmented in many different directions. Rabbi's machshavas, many different thoughts. Haterdes and mubabalas, they say. that they disturb the person from Avodas Hashem. Here is concerned about work, and here is concerned about money, and here is concerned about other things. There's all these things on his head that are weighing him down and disturbing his concentration on davening. And eventually it brings him to speak in a way and to do things which are not connected to Hashem, other things that are not godly or even against godly. So that's why we say Shema Yisrael. Shema means to listen. But now he's introducing another pshat, which you might have never heard before, that Shema can also mean gather, to gather together. Where do we see such a thing? There's a pasuk in Shmuel, Vayishama Shaul Esa'om, and Shaul gathered the nation. That's what the Targum says. Uknash Shaul Yos'ama. He gathered the nation to speak to them. And that's the same thing when we say Shema, I should gather together all my thoughts, all my words, all my actions. They should all be straight. So again, what does it mean? That everything is, it brings a certain cohesiveness into my life. Everything is going in the same direction. Yes, I'm going to work. That's to enhance my service of Hashem. Yes, I'm going to relax. That's to enhance my service to Hashem. I'm going to have something for entertainment. That's to enhance my service to Hashem. I'm going to go on a trip. That'll also, and everything I do is connected to my Avodas Hashem. And therefore it's all straight. Nothing goes out of line with what Hashem wants. That's what it means to gather everything together. When we meditate on Hashem Elokeinu, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu is Chochma and Bina. Shem Mokar is Havos, Vavaya Echad and Yavai Shanisi. I think about the idea that the creation comes from Shem Havaya, and in reference to Shem Havaya, it says, Lo Shanisi, I did not change, which means that the whole world has absolutely no impact on Hashem. There's the Klolus is Havos Hu Mihar Levad. There's a famous pasuk which is brought down a lot of places in Chassidus. Ani Havaya Lo Shanisi. It's also brought down in Tanya. It says, I am God, I haven't changed. But it says that in reference to Shem Havaya. In other words, Shem Elokim, that's Hashem's name as he lowers himself and invests himself in the world, in nature, with all the changes taking place. Shem Havaya is Hashem as he is above nature, and all the changes in the world is the same. In fact, we say in davening, this is what the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya, Atahu Hashem, Achelei Nivra Olam, Atahu Hashem, Misha Nivra Olam. You're the same God before the world was created, and the same after the world was created. Nothing in the whole creation makes any change within you. Has no effect on you. And the reason is because the whole world was created from Ha'ar Levad. Ha'ar means a reflection. To explain this in a simple way, if you carry something that's heavy, does it affect you? Yeah. What if you carry something that's light? It doesn't weigh 20 pounds, it weighs 5 pounds. It doesn't affect you like 20 pounds, but it has to affect you. What about 1 pound? Affects you also. What about when you're speaking, you're not exerting as much energy as you're lifting a heavy box, but when you speak, is there any energy coming out? Yes. When you do things, take a hammer, you're not going to nail, it's energy. Everything I do has a certain effect on me. So what about if I'm standing in front of a mirror and my reflection is reflected in the mirror? Can I get tired from that? No. You can get tired from standing in front of the mirror for 100 days, that's true. But the reflection in the mirror will not make me tired. I'm not going to say, being that you're in front of the mirror and your presence is reflected in the mirror, so the reflection tires you out, drains you. The reflection will make you exhausted. No way. There's nothing happening. It's as if there's nothing really going on. A reflection is so much not part of me that I could, in theory, the reflection could be there all day long and it will do nothing to me. when Hashem created the world, the whole creation, all the heavens and all the earth and all the spiritual worlds and all the angels and all the neshamas and everything that exists in the Keser and believable, everything comes from a ha'ara, from a reflection of Hashem. And therefore, all of this makes no difference to him. It does not do anything. Hashem is so infinite. And that's a part of understanding the greatness of Hashem with Seichel Eloki. The Kriya Shema hu Kisei. Now we go back to the original, that Shema is Kisei. How does it go back to Kisei? Chav Samach spells case, which means a case, a cup. Kais ubeskibul, a cup is receiving something. In a cup, you put drinks into a cup. What does kais aleph mean? Kisei, shaseichel elaki yiskabel b'seichel anushi. That in the cup, meaning in the recipient, which is the animal soul, the aleph, which is the godly soul, its ideas and its perception, its understanding should register and be perceived by the animal soul. So the Seichel Elokei shines in the logic of the Seichel Anushi and the Seichel of Nefesh Bahamis, and then it affects everything. All my conduct, and everything I do, Seichel Elokei will be on Seichel Elokei. Which means not only I'll sort of discipline my animal soul not to do anything wrong, but I'll see the world from a whole different perspective, that even my animal soul, the animal part in me, will start recognizing that perspective, that that's the true perspective of creation. There was a chassid that came from, I guess he must have been in Lubavitch initially, and then he came to America way before everybody else came to America. He lived in Baltimore, they say. And this chassid, they say about this chassid that he never lifted his head or stretched his head to look up at the skyscrapers, the tall buildings, like, I'm going to go out of my way to look at these beautiful things. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not an avera. It just meant that I'm in a different world. Like I told you yesterday, if you walk over to some chassid and you tell him, how do you feel about the results of the Super Bowl? It's not that he doesn't know the results. It's not that he won't be sad if he hears that his certain team in New York lost. It's totally irrelevant. He doesn't know what you're talking about. At the same token, when you walk over to the person who's sitting by the Super Bowl, and you ask him, what's the chiluk between Atzilus and Bria? He also doesn't know what you're talking about. It makes totally irrelevant. He thinks you're speaking some sort of foreign language. I heard that the Lubavitch Chassidim, when they were in Russia, you probably know that in 1946, 47, that's when most of the Lubavitch Chassidim escaped Russia. The ones that are here in America, in Israel. How did they escape? Because Russia made a deal with Poland that they're going to allow 1 million Poland citizens to leave. So all of a sudden, all the Lubavitchers became Polish, even though they all came from Russia. How did they do that? They got false documents that said that they were Polish. And there were people who used to do that. They would falsify the documents. They were pretty much risking their lives. Unfortunately, some were caught and they were executed. But that's how a lot of people got out through these false documents. So I forgot which country it was, but in one of the borders, and when they came, they said, okay, you're from that country, so let me hear, it wasn't Poland, it was from a different country, but let me hear you speak that language. Now they're stuck. They don't know how to speak that language. So the chassid started to say, it's not Hebrew, it's Aramaic from davening. He goes, okay, you can go through. So next chassid did the same thing. So every chassid that went by said, and he recognized, oh, this is the language, they got it right. So the joke was that one day somebody, a non-Jew from that country came there, and he said to him, okay, let me hear you speak that language. And he starts speaking language. No, that's not it. I know what it is, it's not it. He wouldn't let him through because it's not the language. So Seichel Elokei is almost like a different language. Seichel Anushi is a different language. and Seichel Bahami is a different language. So the ultimate goal is that the Seichel the Seichel of the animal soul should become a kos of like a becher, should become a cup, that in it will be received the understanding and the perception of the Seichel Elokei. That's kos aleph, and that's why the Shema is called the Kisei. Now, the Baruch Hashem, we davened up to the Shulchan, the Kiseis, and next part of the Maimon, we're going to go into Shmon Esrei, which is the menorah. To be continued. Okay. Good Shabbos, everybody. Hope this be a very successful Shabbos.